What if I told you that hidden within the ancient pages of the Bible lies a book so profoundly terrifying, so eerily precise in its visions of the future, that it has shaken the foundations of empires, scholars, and souls for over 2,700 years? Imagine a prophet writing in the dusty shadows of 700 BC, peering across centuries to describe events with such vivid accuracy that it defies the very laws of time and human understanding. This isn't mere poetry or vague mysticism. It's a roadmap, etched by divine hand, revealing cosmic battles, the rise and fall of nations, and the intimate details of a Savior's suffering long before crucifixion was even conceived as a method of execution. The book of Isaiah doesn't just predict, it unveils a terrifying truth. Our world is not random chaos, but a stage for supernatural forces, where prophecies unfold with mathematical precision, challenging everything we think we know about destiny, free will, and the unseen war raging around us. As we embark on this journey together, let's pause and breathe deeply. Allow the weight of these ancient words to settle gently upon your spirit, like a quiet whisper from eternity. We'll move slowly, thoughtfully, unraveling layer by layer the mysteries that have captivated kings and commoners alike. Picture yourself in a serene garden at dawn, the first light piercing the horizon, as we delve into Isaiah's vision, with haste, but with the calm deliberation they deserve. This exploration isn't about fear alone. It's about awakening to a deeper reality, where terror and hope intertwine like vines in the Psalms, reminding us that though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. The terror begins with the sheer impossibility of it all. Isaiah, a man of his time, bound by the limitations of Bronze Age knowledge, foretells the crucifixion of Jesus in chapter 53, with details that read like an eyewitness account, piercing. Wounds for our transgressions, stripes by which we are healed, burial with the rich in his death. Yet, crucifixion as a form of torture wouldn't emerge until centuries later, under Persian and Roman rule. How could he know? It's revelation that echoes the philosophical depths of divine omniscience, where God, as the Alpha and Omega, sees the end from the beginning, much like the eternal perspective in Revelation. Scholars have grappled with this, some dismissing it as retroactive editing. But the evidence manuscripts predating Christ stands unyielding, proving these words were penned long before their fulfillment. But Isaiah's prophecies extend beyond the Messiah's suffering. They paint a cosmic war, a battle between light and darkness that plays out in our headlines today. In chapters 13 through 24, he describes global upheavals, nations crumbling, environmental devastation, where the earth reels like a drunkard, and supernatural forces clashing in ways that ancient rabbis deemed too dangerous for the unprepared soul. They warned against reading certain sections without spiritual fortitude, for the imagery of seraphim crying, "Holy, holy, holy," in the throne room of Lucifer's fall in chapter 14, stirs the spirit to its core, evoking the poetic lament. In Psalm 82, where God judges among the gods, this isn't abstract theology. It's a warning that our world is a theater of spiritual warfare, where principalities and powers, as Paul later echoes in Ephesians, wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers of darkness. Consider the philosophical implications. If time is not a linear chain, but a tapestry woven by an eternal weaver, then Isaiah's glimpses into the future challenge our materialistic views, urging us toward a Platonic ideal of higher truth infused with biblical wisdom. His words align with Proverbs 25:2. It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. To search out a matter is the glory of kings. We, as seekers, are invited to search, to uncover how these prophecies mirror today's political chaos, natural disasters, and moral inversions, where good is called evil. As in Isaiah 5:20, resonating with the slow decay of societies in our era, the Dead Sea Scrolls, those ancient treasures unearthed like hidden manna, confirm Isaiah's unity and antiquity. The great Isaiah scroll, virtually identical to our modern texts, dates to before Christ's birth, shattering claims of post-event fabrication. This manuscript evidence isn't dry academia. Flying objects and melting fire that hint at modern warfare drones, missiles, nuclear threats, concepts unknown in his day. This linguistic sophistication suggests not human genius, but divine download, a philosophical bridge between finite minds and infinite knowledge. Archaeologically, the Cyrus cylinder echoes Isaiah's naming of Cyrus in chapters 44 to 45, a ruler unborn. For 150 years, who would rebuild Jerusalem's temple? Discovered in 1879, it details Cyrus's policies matching the prophecy exactly. A testament to God's sovereignty over history, as in Daniel's visions of empires rising and falling like beasts from the sea. Philosophically, this precision defies chance, aligning with the teleological argument for design, a universe not of random atoms but purposeful narrative. As we reflect on these foundations, let's consider the broader canvas. Isaiah's prophecies aren't isolated. They weave into the Bible's grand story from Genesis's creation to Revelation's consummation, inviting us to a life of faith amid uncertainty. Like the psalmist's cry in Psalm 42, deep calls to deep, Isaiah calls us to deeper waters. Before we continue this immersive journey, if you've ever pondered the mysteries of heaven's gates, the unseen battles in the spiritual realm, or what truly transpired before humanity's first breath in Eden's garden, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the Jesus Speaks channel for more profound explorations, and comment 777 below. Your deep insights and voice are part of a chosen generation seeking truth beyond the surface illusions of our world. Together, we're awakening to eternal realities. Now, as the sun rises higher in our metaphorical garden, let's delve deeper into how Isaiah's visions of the Messiah not only predict but reveal the heart of God's redemptive plan, where the innocent bears the guilty's burden, a concept that philosophers like Kierkegaard would later wrestle with as the paradox of faith. This isn't just prediction, it's the unveiling of cosmic justice, where love conquers through sacrifice, echoing the gentle assurance in Psalm 23 that even in death's shadow, goodness and mercy follow. The problem for skeptics is profound. Manuscripts prove pre-fulfillment, authorship, yet the details wounds, silence before accusers, burial with the rich match the Gospels perfectly. This accuracy isn't human, it's divine fingerprint, challenging us to philosophize on predestination versus free will, breathing in the calm, remember, Isaiah's terror is matched by hope. His words, like Theon psalms of comfort, assure that amid prophecy's storm, God's presence is our refuge. Let's carry this serenity forward, immersing ourselves in the next layers of this divine mystery. Imagine, if you will, a solitary figure in the ancient hills of Judah, quill in hand, inscribing words that pierce through the veil of centuries to describe a suffering servant whose wounds would heal the world of vision so graphic, so intimately detailed, that it reads not as distant prophecy but as a heartfelt lament from the foot of the cross itself. This is the essence of Isaiah chapter 53, where the terror lies not merely in prediction but in the profound revelation of divine love manifesting through human agony, challenging us to contemplate the philosophical depths of sacrifice and redemption. As we proceed with measured steps on this immersive path, let us allow the narrative to unfold gradually, much like the unfolding petals in the Song of Solomon, where beauty emerges from hidden places, inviting us to reflect on eternal truths. With a calm and receptive spirit, Isaiah's depiction of the Messiah's crucifixion transcends mere foresight. It unveils the spiritual architecture of atonement with a precision that human intellect could never fabricate. He writes of one despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, who bears our infirmities and carries our pains. The piercing for transgressions, the crushing for iniquities. These are not abstract metaphors, but vivid portrayals of substitutionary suffering, where the righteous endures the penalty of the unrighteous, justifying many through his sacrifice. This concept echoes the sacrificial lambs of Exodus, yet elevates it to a cosmic principle, as articulated later in the New Testament's doctrine of propitiation in 1 John 2:2. Philosophically, it confronts us with the paradox of divine justice. How can infinite holiness demand payment for sin, while infinite love provides the payment itself? It is akin to the dialectical tension in Hegelian thought, where thesis and antithesis resolve in synthesis. But here, grounded in biblical wisdom, God's wrath, satisfied by God's mercy, a logical harmony that defies naturalistic explanations, and draws us into the mystery of grace, as sung in Psalm 85, where mercy and truth meet, righteousness and peace kiss. The terror intensifies when we consider the historical impossibility, crucifixion, with its nails and spears causing hypovolemic shock and asphyxiation, was unknown in Isaiah's era. It emerged later under Persian and Roman influences. Yet, he describes the wounds, the silence before accusers, like a lamb before shearers, and the burial with the rich. Details that align flawlessly with the gospel accounts of Jesus before Pilate, on the cross, and in Joseph of Arimathea's tomb. This accuracy cannot be dismissed as coincidence. It demands acknowledgement of supernatural revelation, where the prophet accesses knowledge from the eternal realm, much like the visions granted to Daniel in chapter 7, unveiling kingdoms yet to rise. From a philosophical standpoint, this challenges linear causality, suggesting time as a unified whole perceived by divine consciousness, aligning with Boethius's concept of eternity as the simultaneous possession of endless life, infused with the biblical assurance in Ecclesiastes 3 that God has set eternity in the human heart, but Isaiah's prophecies extend beyond the personal to the geopolitical. naming Cyrus the Persian in chapters 44 and 45 as the anointed one who would subdue nations, loosen the loins of kings, and decree the rebuilding of Jerusalem's temple specifics, given 150 years before Cyrus's birth and over 200 years before his edict in 538 BC. The archaeological corroboration is undeniable. The Cyrus cylinder, unearthed in Babylon, records his policy of restoring exiles and rebuilding sanctuaries, matching Isaiah's words precisely. This is not vague oracle speak, like the ambiguous utterances of Delphi. It is verifiable prophecy, tested by the criteria in Deuteronomy 18:22, where true prophets speak what comes to pass. Logically, the probability of guessing a name, actions, and outcomes across centuries approaches zero. As statistical analyses of prophetic fulfillment demonstrate odds of 1 in 10 to the 17th power for even a subset of messianic details alone. Philosophically, this underscores teleology, the purposeful direction of history echoing Aristotle's final cause, but elevated to divine intentionality, as in Proverbs 16:4, where the Lord has made everything for its purpose. The broader scope of Isaiah's accuracy creates what scholars term the Isaiah problem, an academic conundrum where liberal theologians propose multiple authors to explain the precision, suggesting later sections were written post-event. Yet, this theory falters under rigorous examination. The Dead Sea Scrolls reveal a unified manuscript, with no seams or stylistic breaks, treated as a single work by ancient scribes. Linguistic studies show consistent vocabulary, syntax, and theological motifs throughout all 66 chapters, over 2,000 unique Hebrew words, including terms that anticipate future innovations, like consuming fire that melts metal in contexts, evoking modern weaponry. This unity reflects not human compilation, but divine authorship, as affirmed in 2 Peter 1:21, where prophecy comes not from human will, but from men carried along by the Holy Spirit. Philosophically, the bias against supernatural prediction mirrors the Enlightenment's rationalism, which prioritizes material causes. Yet the evidence demands a paradigm shift, much like Kuhn's scientific revolutions. Toward acknowledging transcendent intelligence, consider the end times prophecies that align with chilling accuracy to our era. Isaiah 24 portrays global environmental devastation, the earth defiled by its inhabitants, languishing and fading, with cosmic disturbances shaking the foundations. Today's reports of climate upheaval, seismic increases, and ecological collapse read as fulfillments, logically extending Isaiah's warnings about moral decay leading to physical judgment, as in Romans 8, where creation groans for redemption. His Hebrew terminology for flying objects in chapters 18 and 31, or destroying from heaven in 13, suggests aerial technologies, drones, missiles that were inconceivable in 700 BC, pointing to prophetic vocabulary inspired by divine foresight. This prescience defies rational explanation without invoking the supernatural, inviting us to ponder Psalm 19, where the heavens declare God's glory, and His law revives the soul. The theological implications are staggering. If Isaiah's fulfilled prophecies validate his reliability, then his unfulfilled warnings about divine judgment deserve equal credence. Nations rejecting moral law, oppressing the innocent, embracing deceptions, have repeated across history. From Assyria's fall to Babylon's desolation, each fulfilling Isaiah's sequence with mathematical exactness. Statistically, the cumulative accuracy approaches impossibility through natural means, as analyses by experts calculate probabilities that exceed scientific thresholds for chance. Philosophically, this validates a theistic worldview where history is not cyclical chaos, as in Eastern philosophies, but linear progression toward divine consummation, as depicted in Revelation 21's new heaven and earth. Yet, amid the terror, Isaiah offers hope, a roadmap for spiritual preparation. His visions of cosmic war warn against reading without readiness, as ancient rabbis advised, for they stir the soul to confrontation with holiness, like the seraphim's cry in chapter 6. This calls us to humility, aligning with Micah 6-8's mandate to act justly, love mercy, walk humbly with God. In our reflective pause, if these insights into prophetic depth resonate with your quest for truth, consider liking this exploration and subscribing to Jesus Speaks for continued journeys into scriptural mysteries. As we conclude this section with Kiam Giam, let the weight of Isaiah's words settle like dew on morning grass, terrifying in their precision, yet reassuring in their promise of redemption. The journey beckons onward, toward the historical fulfillments that anchor these visions in unassailable reality, where divine plans unfold with inexorable logic and grace. Envision the echoes of ancient empires crumbling not in the annals of forgotten history, but as precise fulfillments of prophecies inscribed centuries prior, where clay tablets and royal inscriptions bear witness to a divine script unfolding across time. This is the profound terror embedded in Isaiah's historical documentation, a timeline of verified predictions that spans over 2,700 years, demonstrating supernatural accuracy that challenges empirical skepticism and invites philosophical contemplation on the interplay between predestination and human agency. As we advance deliberately through this exploration, let us adopt a contemplative rhythm akin to the reflective pauses in Psalm 105, where the psalmist recounts God's mighty deeds to affirm his faithfulness, allowing each layer of evidence to resonate with clarity and depth. The historical validation of Isaiah's prophecies commences with one of the most meticulously documented instances, the prophecy concerning Cyrus the Persian in chapters 44 and 45, composed around 700 BC. Isaiah explicitly names Cyrus as the ruler who would conquer nations, release exiles, and issue a decree for the reconstruction of Jerusalem's temple forecast, delivered 150 years before Cyrus's birth and over 200 years prior to its realization. In 538 BC, the corroborating evidence emerges from diverse sources, forming an unbreakable chain of authentication. The Cyrus cylinder, discovered in Babylon in 1879 and now preserved in the British Museum, contains Cyrus's own proclamation of his policies toward conquered peoples, stating that he restored sacred cities, returned deities to their sanctuaries, and gathered former inhabitants to their homelands. This aligns verbatim with Isaiah's depiction of Cyrus as God's anointed shepherd who would perform his will, loosening the belts of kings and opening doors before him. Furthermore, the biblical account in Ezra chapters 1 and 6 details the decrees, language, and allocated resources, while the 1st century AD historian Josephus records that Cyrus upon reading Isaiah's prophecy about himself, was compelled to fulfill it precisely. This convergence spanning Persian artifacts, Hebrew scriptures, and Greek historiography eliminates the possibility of cultural fabrication or retrospective interpretation, logically underscoring a supernatural foreknowledge that incorporates human decisions within a divine framework, much as Augustine philosophized in The City of God about providence guiding history without negating free will. Extending this precision, Isaiah's prophecies regarding Babylon's downfall in chapters 13 through 47 and 21 describe its destruction with unparalleled specificity, conquered without a prolonged siege, during a festival when defenses were lax, resulting in the royal family's demise and the city's permanent desolation as a haunt for wild animals. The Nabonidus Chronicle, an independent Babylonian record, confirms that Cyrus captured the city without battle amid celebrations, aligning exactly with the prophetic sequence. Philosophically, this accuracy transcends mere political acumen. It reveals a moral dimension where spiritual corruption precipitates physical collapse, as Isaiah attributes Babylon's fate to its arrogance against God, echoing the ethical causality in Proverbs 16:18 that pride precedes destruction. The terror here is not isolated to antiquity, but extends to patterns observable in subsequent civilizations, where moral decay, oppression of the innocent, embrace of idolatry invariably leads to downfall, a recurring theme validated by historical cycles from Rome's excesses to modern societal inversions. The destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, foretold in Isaiah 29 as a city besieged and reduced to dust, finds eerie confirmation in Roman historian Tacitus's Histories, which details the siege tactics, internal famines, and complete temple demolition under Titus, events mirroring Isaiah's vision of armies encompassing the city like a potter's vessel shattered. This fulfillment, 700 years removed, defies naturalistic probability, inviting logical analysis. How could an 8th century prophet foresee siege engines and factional strife with such fidelity? It points to divine omniscience, where history serves as a theater for moral instruction, as articulated in Deuteronomy 32's Song of Judgment and Redemption. Medieval and later historical records further substantiate Isaiah's scope. The desolation of Moab in chapters 15 to 16, Damascus in 17, and Egypt's civil war along the Nile in 19 occurred according to specified timelines and methods, including geographical vulnerabilities and political alliances. Assyrian royal inscriptions, unearthed in the 19th century, verify Isaiah's contemporary prophecies in chapters 10, 14, and 37. The military campaigns against Israel and Judah, Sennacherib's arrogant boasts, and the miraculous failure of his siege on Jerusalem, where 185,000 soldiers perished overnight as predicted. Ancient Jewish sources, such as the Talmud, document Isaiah's consultations with kings due to his proven predictive prowess, while the Mishnah engages in theological debates on whether such detailed future knowledge could arise naturally, concluding it stems from divine communion. Byzantine chroniclers noted the fall of Constantinople and the rise of Islamic empires, aligning with Isaiah's end-times motifs of persecution and shifting powers, a pattern persisting into the Christian era. The continuity of these fulfillments across Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, Latin, and Arabic sources precludes coordinated deception, philosophically affirming a transcendent truth that transcends cultural biases. Much like Plato's forms, existing beyond shadows, archaeological excavations of Babylon confirm its enduring wasteland status. Despite reconstruction attempts by rulers like Alexander the Great and Saddam Hussein, fulfilling Isaiah's declaration of eternal desolation due to divine curse paralleling the unfruitful fig tree in Mark 11 as a symbol of judgment, modern historians, even those secular in orientation, acknowledge this unprecedented accuracy. Renowned scholar Paul Johnson observes that Isaiah's political foresight surpasses rational historical models, compelling consideration of supernatural elements. The cumulative timeline from Assyria's immediate threats to end times harbingers demonstrates consistent precision exceeding statistical norms, where each fulfilled prophecy bolsters the credibility of the unfulfilled, as in the logical progression of inductive reasoning. Yet, the most disturbing facet is the validation of Isaiah's future warnings through this flawless track record. If the same prophetic voice accurately detailed ancient empires' rises and falls, then his depictions of global catastrophes, cosmic disturbances, and divine interventions merit serious heed. The pattern suggests these events await their appointed time, with contemporary signs, geopolitical tensions, environmental shifts manifesting with the same exactitude. Philosophically, this implies history as a divine narrative, not random entropy, aligning with Ecclesiastes 3's seasons under heaven. The preservation of these records itself fulfills Isaiah 42:8, where God's word stands forever despite suppression attempts, a testament to providential guardianship akin to the enduring heavens in Psalm 89. Isaiah reveals not arbitrary predictions, but a comprehensive plan for human history, where spiritual forces shape outcomes, demanding moral alignment, as in Amos 5:24's call for justice to roll like waters. In this Kiyam Giyam, the terror yields to awe, history as divine dialogue, inviting response. If these historical threads weave conviction in your spirit, like and subscribe to Jesus Speaks for further unveilings of scriptural profundity. As we transition thoughtfully, the cultural ripples of these prophecies await, where words once penned in obscurity have redirected the destinies. Imagine the ancient words of a prophet leaping across millennia to intersect with the headlines of our modern world, where a nation is reborn in a single day. Barren deserts transform into verdant gardens, and moral compasses invert in ways that mirror precise biblical warnings, convergence so striking that it compels us to question whether history is merely unfolding or being orchestrated by an unseen hand. This is the unsettling reality of Isaiah's contemporary fulfillments, where prophecies once deemed impossible now manifest with mathematical rigor, challenging materialistic paradigms and inviting philosophical inquiry into the nature of time, destiny, and divine intervention. As we delve into this section with deliberate poise, let us embrace the serene cadence of Psalm 37, trusting in the Lord and committing our way to Him, allowing the evidence to illuminate our understanding layer by layer, fostering a profound Kiyam Giyam on hope amidst impending transformation. The most compelling modern validation commences with Isaiah's prophecy of Israel's restoration in chapter 66, foretelling a nation reborn in one day, with Jews returning from every corner, of the earth and the desert, rejoicing to blossom as the rose. In 35-1, on May 14, 1948, Israel declared independence, recognized swiftly by global powers following the United Nations partition, VOTA, literal fulfillment within a 24-hour span. This event, emerging from the ashes of the Holocaust and colonial mandates, defies geopolitical odds, yet aligns impeccably with Isaiah's sequence. Philosophically, it evokes questions of providential history. Is this mere human resilience, or the outworking of divine covenant, as in Genesis 12's promise to Abraham? The terror resides in its implications. Isaiah posits this rebirth as the catalyst for end times events, a starting gun triggering global judgments, akin to the birth pangs in Matthew 24, where nations rise against nations amid cosmic signs complementing. This, the agricultural metamorphosis of Israel, provides irrefutable testimony. In 1948, the land was predominantly arid wasteland, scarred by centuries of neglect. Today, it exports billions in produce, with advanced drip irrigation, turning Negev sands into fertile fields. Isaiah 35-1's vision of the wilderness glad and blossoming has materialized literally, a transformation linguists and agronomists once deemed improbable. This fulfillment extends to the revival of Hebrew, dormant for nearly 2,000 years as a liturgical tongue. Now Israel's vibrant spoken language, a restoration of pure speech, as in Zephaniah 3-9, paralleling Isaiah's themes. Logically, such a linguistic resurrection, considered impossible by experts like Eliezer Ben Yehuda's contemporaries, underscores supernatural orchestration, where dead languages live again, echoing Ezekiel's dry bones in chapter 37. The ingathering of exiles further amplifies the precision. Isaiah 43-5-6 predicts returns from east, west, north, and south. Since 1948, over 7 million Jews have immigrated from more than 100 nations, including massive waves from the Soviet North post-1991 collapse and Ethiopian Yemeni South. This geographic specificity, spanning continents, defies probabilistic models. How could an ancient prophet map diaspora reversals with such accuracy? Statistically, the convergence approaches negligibility for chance, philosophically affirming a teleological view where scattered peoples are regathered for redemptive purposes, as in Deuteronomy 30's promise of restoration. Yet, the most harrowing modern alignments concern spiritual and societal decays. Isaiah 5:20 warns of an era calling evil good and good evil, a moral inversion permeating contemporary culture, where historical vices are reframed as virtues and traditional ethics condemned. This ethical reversal, evident in shifting societal norms on identity, justice, and truth, aligns with prophetic exactitude, inviting reflection on Romans 1's suppression of truth in unrighteousness. Technologically, Isaiah 66-15 depicts the Lord coming with fire and chariots, like whirlwinds imagery evoking modern military hardware, helicopters, or missiles, while phrases like consuming fire from heaven in various chapters suggest nuclear capabilities unknown in antiquity but resonant today. Environmentally, chapter 24-4-6 describes the earth mourning defiled by inhabitants. Current climate degradation, biodiversity loss, and pollution mirror this. logically linking moral pollution to physical consequences, as in Hosea 4:2-3, where the land mourns for iniquity. Global communication fulfills Isaiah 66:19's declaration of God's glory among nations. Simultaneously, the internet and satellites enabling real-time dissemination, a capability absent until the digital age. Political prophecies, like Damascus becoming a ruinous heap in 17, find eerie parallels in Syria's ongoing civil war, bringing the ancient city nearer to total devastation than in its 4,000-year history. Isaiah 18's tall and smooth-skinned nation beyond Ethiopia's rivers, often interpreted as the United States engages in Middle Eastern affairs, aligning with end-times gatherings against Jerusalem. Economically, 55:1 to 2 critiques spending on unsatisfying pursuits, encapsulating modern consumerism's artificial needs and spiritual void, philosophically critiquing capitalism's illusion of fulfillment, akin to Ecclesiastes' vanity under the sun. Persecution of believers 59:14, where justice falters and truth stumbles, manifests in rising restrictions on religious liberty worldwide. Natural disasters escalate per 24:18-20's Earth, reeling like a drunkard. Seismic activity and extreme weather surging since 1948, correlating with prophetic timelines. The knowledge explosion in 28:9-10, precept upon precept, reflects exponential scientific growth, surpassing all prior history. Attempts at global governance 2-4's swords into plowshares via the United Nations echo Isaiah, though his warnings suggest human efforts fail without divine foundation. Medical advances 3556, opening blind eyes and making lame leap, align with modern prosthetics and gene therapies, once miraculous notions. Astronomical insights 34:4's heavens dissolving accord with discoveries of expanding universes and stellar lifespans, contradicting ancient static cosmos views. The acceleration of these fulfillments intimates rapid approach of Isaiah's cataclysmic prophecies, validating unfulfilled warnings through historical reliability. Philosophically, this suggests quantum-like temporal mechanics, where prophecy transcends linearity, as Hugh Ross posits models for revelation beyond time. Counter-arguments merit thorough refutation, strengthening the case. The Vaticinium ex eventu claim prophecies written post-fulfillment crumbles against Dead Sea Scrolls pre-Christ unity. Self-fulfilling prophecies, like Cyrus's response, overlook fulfillments despite resistance, such as Jerusalem's 70 AD fall. Coincidence theories ignore specificity. Statistical odds, metaphorical interpretations falter on literal historical realizations. Confirmation bias, accusations disregard secular scholars' admissions, while institutional naturalism biases, oppositely. Translation issues dissolve under Hebrew precision, Septuagint, predating Christ. Political insight can't name unborn rulers or invent crucifixion details. Religious propaganda claims ignore secular suppression of evidence. These objections, when dissected, reinforce supernatural origins as rigorous scrutiny. Linguistic, historical, validates divine revelation, echoing 1 Corinthians 2's spiritually discerned truths. In Kiamgiam, terror balances with assurance, fulfillments affirm a purposeful cosmos. If this modern tapestry stirs reflection, Subscribe to Jesus Speaks for deeper biblical insights. Onward to scholarly evidences, where academia confronts the inexplicable. Picture an ancient scroll, its parchment weathered by time, yet its words pulsing with a vibrancy that defies the centuries, speaking truths so precise that they challenge the very foundations of human understanding. The book of Isaiah stands as a monument to this paradox, where linguistic complexity, archaeological discoveries, and statistical improbability converged to form an unshakable case for supernatural revelation, a case that demands philosophical reckoning with the nature of knowledge itself. As we step gently into this section, let us move with the reflective calm of Psalm 119, where the psalmist meditates on God's word as a lamp to guide the feet, allowing each piece of evidence to unfold slowly, inviting us to contemplate the eternal wisdom that weaves history, prophecy, and truth into a singular tapestry of divine purpose. The scholarly evidence for Isaiah's prophetically accuracy begins with its linguistic sophistication, a marvel that transcends the capabilities of its 8th century BC context. Isaiah's text employs over 2,000 distinct Hebrew words, a vocabulary breadth surpassing typical ancient literature. More strikingly, it includes technical terminology for concepts unimaginable in its era, phrases like flying objects destroying from the air in chapters 18 and 31, or consuming fire that melts metal in chapter 34, evoking imagery of modern warfare technologies such as drones, missiles, or nuclear capabilities. These terms, analyzed by Hebrew scholars like Gary Smith, exhibit a precision that anticipates scientific advancements millennia away, defying naturalistic explanations. Philosophically, this linguistic foresight suggests a mind accessing knowledge beyond temporal boundaries, aligning with the biblical assertion in 2 Peter 1:21 that prophecy originates not from human will but from divine inspiration. It echoes Plato's theory of forms, where true knowledge exists in an eternal realm, but here grounded in the biblical reality of a God who declares the end from the beginning. As in Isaiah 46:10, archaeological evidence anchors this linguistic marvel in tangible history. The Dead Sea Scrolls, discovered in the Qumran caves, include the Great Isaiah Scroll, carbon dated to approximately 125 BC, a complete manuscript predating Jesus by over a century. This scroll, virtually identical to the Masoretic text used today, eliminates the possibility that messianic prophecies, such as chapter 53's depiction of crucifixion, were retroactively edited after their fulfillment. The scroll's unity, showing no textual breaks or stylistic shifts, refutes the liberal hypothesis of multiple authors, a theory driven more by ideological aversion to supernatural prediction than by evidence. The Cyrus cylinder, unearthed in 1879, corroborates chapters 44-45, detailing Cyrus's decree to rebuild Jerusalem's temple, exactly as predicted 150 years before his birth. Additional artifacts, like Assyrian inscriptions, confirm Isaiah's accounts of Sennacherib's failed siege of Jerusalem in chapter 37 and the empire's campaigns in chapter 10, aligning with precise historical timelines. These discoveries, validated by scholars like Kenneth Kitchen, demonstrate a statistical improbability for natural foresight. suggesting a divine orchestration akin to Psalm 33:11, where God's plans stand forever. The statistical analysis of Isaiah's prophetic accuracy further solidifies its supernatural origin. Dr. Peter Stoner's work, published by the American Scientific Affiliation, calculates the probability of just 8 messianic prophecies, such as the piercing of hands and feet, burial with the rich, and silence before accusers being fulfilled by chance at 1 in 1017, a figure surpassing scientific thresholds for impossibility. When extended to the full scope of Isaiah's predictions, including named rulers like Cyrus and specific geopolitical events, the odds approach infinitesimal, logically necessitating a cause beyond human prediction. Philosophically, this aligns with the teleological argument for divine design, where purposeful, intelligent direction explains order over chaos, as echoed in Romans 1:20's revelation of God's power through creation. Comparative literature studies highlight Isaiah's distinctiveness. Unlike the vague, ambiguous oracles of Mesopotamian, Egyptian, or Greek traditions, such as Delphi's riddles, Isaiah provides verifiable specifics, names, dates, geographical details, and sequential events. This clarity, analyzed by John Walton, allows objective testing of prophetic authenticity, meeting Deuteronomy 18:22's criterion that true prophecy fulfills precisely. A clay seal bulla, excavated near Jerusalem's Temple Mount, potentially bearing Isaiah's name, further ties the prophet to his historical context, its dating aligning with the 8th century BC. While the final letter is damaged, the artifact's context strengthens the case for single authorship. Geological and astronomical validations deepen the mystery. Isaiah's predictions of the Red Sea and Euphrates drying up in end times scenarios. Chapter 11 align with modern tectonic research, as Stephen Austin notes, revealing knowledge of geological processes unknown in antiquity. Similarly, Chapter 34-4's depiction of stellar collapse and dissolving heavens reflects modern astrophysical understanding of expanding universes and finite stellar lifespans, contradicting ancient views of a fixed cosmos. Medical accuracy in Chapter 53, detailing crucifixions, physiological effects, scourging trauma, asphyxiation, anticipates forensic pathology, as Alexander Mitherel confirms, describing details incomprehensible without modern medical knowledge. Cultural anthropology reveals Isaiah's insight into human behavior across civilizations. His warnings of political corruption, economic oppression, and moral decay, chapters 1-5, consistently manifest in societies rejecting divine authority. From Babylon to modern parallels, offering a sociological lens on judgment's inevitability, as in Amos 5:24's call for justice. Recent quantum physics speculations, like Hugh Ross's analysis, propose models where time operates non-linearly, providing a potential framework for prophetic revelation, though biblically rooted in God's eternal perspective, as in Psalm 92, for where 1,000 years are as a day. The convergence of these disciplines, linguistics, archaeology, statistics, comparative literature, geology, astronomy, medicine, anthropology, and emerging physics, creates a case for Isaiah's supernatural origin that exceeds standards for proof in any other academic field. the systematic suppression of this evidence in secular institutions, despite its rigor, reveals a philosophical bias against supernatural explanations, as materialistic worldviews resist acknowledging divine intelligence. This resistance fulfills Isaiah 5:20's warning of moral inversion, where truth is obscured, yet the evidence persists, preserved like the enduring word in Isaiah 42:8. Philosophically, this integration demands a reevaluation of epistemology. How do we know what we know? If Isaiah accessed transtemporal knowledge, it challenges reductionist models of consciousness, suggesting a spiritual dimension to human awareness. As Paul hints in 1 Corinthians 2:10-11, where the Spirit reveals divine depths, the explanatory power of Isaiah's framework spans archaeological finds, historical patterns, and modern alignments, offering coherence no naturalistic theory matches, akin to the unified vision in Colossians 1:17, where Christ holds all things together in Kiam. Giam, the terror of Isaiah's precision yields to awe at divine fidelity. Each fulfilled prophecy validates unfulfilled warnings, urging preparation for cosmic events. If this scholarly depth stirs your spirit, like and subscribe to Jesus Speaks for continued explorations of scriptural truth as we move forward. Let us immerse ourselves in the cultural impacts of Isaiah's prophecies, where words once whispered in Judah's courts have shaped the destinies of nations across millennia. Imagine a single prophetic voice emerging from the obscurity of ancient Judah, rippling outward like stones cast into the vast ocean of human civilization, altering the courses of empires, igniting reformations and inspiring explorations that reshaped the world map. A voice so potent that rulers bent their policies to its warnings, and cultures wrestled with its truths across 27 centuries. This is the cultural legacy of Isaiah's prophecies, where words of terror and hope have not faded into historical footnotes, but have actively molded the destinies of nations, revealing a supernatural authority that transcends literary influence and touches the spiritual undercurrents of power. As we embark on this section with thoughtful deliberation, let us proceed as if wandering through the galleries of time, much like the psalmist in Psalm 78, recounting the deeds of old to teach generations, allowing the profound impacts to unfold, gradually fostering a Giam on how divine revelation intersects with human ambition. The cultural impact of Isaiah commences with one of the most transformative encounters in antiquity, Cyrus the Persian's response to chapters 44 to 45. According to Josephus, the conqueror, upon reading his own name and predicted actions in the Hebrew scrolls, 150 years after they were written, was so profoundly moved that he issued the decree to rebuild Jerusalem's temple, liberating the Jewish exiles and altering Persian imperial policy toward conquered faiths. This wasn't mere political expediency. It was a pivotal shift where a pagan emperor acknowledged a foreign prophecy's accuracy, influencing the Achaemenid Empire's religious tolerance and enabling Judaism's survival. Philosophically, this event underscores the Socratic idea of divine signposts guiding human affairs, but biblically rooted in Proverbs 21:1, where the king's heart is like streams of water in God's hand, directed as he wills. The terror lies in the implication. Prophecies don't merely predict, They propel events, weaving spiritual forces into political reality, as if Isaiah's words carried an inherent power to summon fulfillment. This influence extended to the Hellenistic world through the Septuagint translation around 250 BC, rendering Isaiah's prophecies into Greek and exposing them to Mediterranean intellectuals. Greek philosophers, accustomed to the ambiguous oracles of Delphi that allowed multiple interpretations post-event, were confronted with Isaiah's specificity names like Cyrus, detailed sequences of empire falls which contrasted sharply with their own traditions, contributing to a cultural pivot toward monotheism during the Hellenistic period. The vivid messianic visions, particularly chapter 53's suffering servant, challenged polytheistic frameworks, planting seeds for philosophical dialogues on a singular divine will, akin to Aristotle's unmoved mover, but infused with moral accountability, as echoed in Micah 6:2-8's call to humble walking with God in the Roman Empire. Isaiah's prophecies created theological tensions that shaped imperial attitudes toward emerging Christianity. Roman officials recognized how early Christians wielded Isaiah's accuracies, such as predictions of empire-shattering judgments in chapters 13 to 23, to validate claims of divine supremacy over Caesar's gods. This led to targeted persecutions, where Isaiah's texts were often the focal point, as they foretold the fall of worldly powers and the rise of a divine kingdom, chapter 9 to 6 to 7. Philosophically, this clash mirrored the Stoic acceptance of fate versus biblical providence, where human empires are transient, as in Daniel 2's statue of kingdoms crumbling before the eternal rock. The cultural ripple persisted into medieval Islamic scholarship, where figures like Al-Ghazali grappled with Isaiah's Christ-centered prophecies, acknowledging him as a prophet yet struggling to reconcile details like the substitutionary suffering. With Islamic theology, this tension spurred developments in Islamic apologetics, influencing discussions on prophetic continuity and divine revelation, a logical extension of shared Abrahamic roots, but highlighting Isaiah's disruptive precision. Within Jewish communities, Isaiah's impact has been enduring and intensive, preserved through diaspora trials. The Talmud records rabbis using his prophecies for calculating messianic timelines, treating the book as a unified oracle of hope amid exile, with chapter 66's restoration visions sustaining Zionist aspirations centuries later. This reverence, philosophical in its emphasis on ethical monotheism, aligns with Deuteronomy 4-6's wisdom before nations, where obedience to divine law demonstrates cultural superiority. Christian culture, perhaps most profoundly shaped, drew from Isaiah for evangelism. Early church fathers like Justin Martyr and Origen constructed theological systems around his messianic accuracy, using chapter 53 as irrefutable proof of Christ's fulfillment. This extended beyond doctrine to inspire art, literature, and social reforms. The Renaissance masters depicting Isaiah's seraphim visions, abolitionists invoking justice themes in chapters 1 and 58 to combat oppression, all reflecting a cultural integration where prophecy informs moral action, as in James 1:27's pure religion, caring for widows and orphans. The Byzantine Empire's policies toward the Holy Land were steeped in Isaiah's end times prophecies, with emperors consulting them for decisions on Jerusalem. believing their actions could hasten or hinder fulfillment. This cultural motivation fueled conflicts with Islamic forces, viewing control of biblical sites through prophetic lenses, like Chapter 2's Nations Flowing to Zion, the Crusades. Similarly, drew from interpretations of Gentile kings serving Israel. Chapter 60, where medieval Christians saw reclaiming Jerusalem as prophetic duty. Though ultimately failing, the fervor shaped European identity for centuries, philosophically blending eschatology with geopolitics in a manner reminiscent of Augustine's two cities, earthly versus heavenly. Exploration eras bore Isaiah's imprint. Christopher Columbus referenced 66 to 19 in his journals, viewing the discovery of the Americas as fulfilling the spread of God's glory to distant isles, providing religious justification for colonial ventures and missionary expansions. The Protestant Reformation amplified this. Martin Luther and John Calvin cited Isaiah's condemnations of corrupt religious leaders, Chapter 56, to challenge papal authority, framing the break from Catholicism as prophetic restoration, logically extending from sola scriptura to cultural upheaval. As in Hebrews 4:12's living word dividing soul and spirit, modern Zionism and Israel's 1948 founding explicitly invoked Isaiah's restoration prophecies, with leaders like Theodore Herzl drawing legitimacy from visions of exiles returning. Chapter 43, transforming a scattered people into a nation. In American culture, from Puritan city on a hill, imagery rooted in Isaiah 2, to evangelical influences on policies supporting Israel per end times views, the prophecies shape voting, philanthropy, and foreign affairs, philosophically embedding manifest destiny in biblical narrative. This sustained impact reveals a pattern. Initial skepticism yields to recognition of accuracy, then acceptance of authority, integrating into decision-making across diverse cultures. Greek to modern, secular nations aligning with Isaiah's vision often prosper, while opposers face predicted judgments, suggesting prophecies influence spiritual realms, shaping reality. As Ephesians 6:12 describes wrestling against principalities, suppression in secular education fulfills deception warnings. Chapter 5, where materialistic biases exclude supernatural authority, yet the influence persists, indicating climax ahead. In Kiyam Giyam, Isaiah's cultural waves affirm divine sovereignty over human stories. If this legacy awakens curiosity, like and subscribe to Jesus Speaks for scriptural depths. Forward to modern fulfillments, where ancient words meet today's realities. Imagine a realm where the boundaries of time dissolve like mist at dawn, allowing a mortal mind to glimpse the intricate web of eternity, where every thread of human choice, cosmic event, and spiritual force is woven into a predetermined yet dynamic tapestry. This is the conceptual framework that unlocks the enigma of Isaiah's prophetic accuracy, a model not of random insight or intellectual prowess, but of divine communion that transcends temporal constraints, compelling us to reevaluate the essence of knowledge, causality, and existence. As we traverse this section with unhurried grace, let us emulate the contemplative spirit of Psalm 90, where Moses reflects on God's eternal nature amid human transience, permitting the ideas to emerge organically, nurturing a deep Kiyam Giyam on the harmony between divine foreknowledge and individual freedom. At the core of this solution framework lies the recognition that Isaiah's revelations operate through principles beyond ordinary human perception. We are not confronting mere predictions born of astute observation or religious mythology. Rather, we encounter evidence of interdimensional communication, where a finite prophet interfaces with infinite intelligence. Isaiah's experiences, such as the visionary encounter in chapter 6, beholding the Lord enthroned amid seraphim's holy cries, represent temporary elevations of consciousness to a trans-temporal state, where past, present, and future coexist. In divine awareness, this aligns with emerging philosophical speculations in quantum physics, suggesting that time may not be strictly linear, but malleable at fundamental levels, potentially enabling information flow across eras. Yet, biblically, it is grounded in God's self-description as the one who inhabits eternity, Isaiah 57:15, declaring the end from the beginning, 46:10. A logical extension of his omniscience that encompasses all possibilities without violating human agency. To grasp this, consider what Isaiah's precision demands. Foreknowledge of Cyrus's name and decree in chapters 44 to 45, 150 years premature. The medical intricacies of crucifixion in chapter 53, centuries before its invention, or end times environmental cataclysms in chapter 24 that mirror modern ecological crises. Such details require access to an information structure of reality, a divine repository of patterns, principles, and outcomes, where free human decisions are anticipated and integrated. Philosophically, this echoes Boethius's consolation of philosophy, where God views time as a simultaneous whole, like an observer atop a mountain surveying the landscape below. Yet it diverges by emphasizing active divine shaping, as in Proverbs 16:4, "The Lord has made everything for its own purpose." The terror arises from the implication: history is not a product of random evolution or blind fate, but a purposeful narrative directed by cosmic authority, where our lives play roles in a grand redemptive drama. This framework elucidates the mechanics of prophetic revelation as a selective download from eternal consciousness. Isaiah received targeted insights, focusing on themes like national judgments, chapters 13 to 23, messianic redemption, chapter 53, and ultimate restoration, chapter 65, serving strategic divine purposes rather than gratifying curiosity. Unlike exhaustive omniscience granted to mortals, which could overwhelm or tempt misuse, this limitation preserves moral integrity, logically consistent with Deuteronomy 29 to 29's distinction between revealed and secret things belonging to God. Philosophically, it addresses the free will paradox. Predetermined plans do not negate choice. Instead, they incorporate it, much as a master novelist crafts a story, knowing characters' decisions while guiding the plot. Human agency remains pivotal. Our responses to prophecies determine personal outcomes, echoing Joshua 24:15's call to choose whom we serve. Within the assurance of Romans 8:28 that all things work for good to those who love God. The dual function of Isaiah's prophecies as warnings and promises underscores their redemptive intent. Warnings against moral decay, pride leading to downfall, chapter 2, 11 to 17. Oppression inviting judgment, chapter 10 to 1 to 4. Spiritual deception, Blinding Societies, chapter 520, describe inevitable consequences of rejecting divine law, serving as calls to repentance. Promises, conversely, depict blessings for alignment. Peace like a river, chapter 48 to 18. New creation without weeping, chapter 65 to 19. This moral dimension reveals prophecy as an instrument of grace, not fatalism, philosophically akin to Kant's categorical imperative but elevated by divine relational ethics. As in Hosea 6:26, where God desires mercy over sacrifice. The terror intensifies in recognizing that unheeded warnings become self-fulfilling through natural and spiritual repercussions. Yet hope persists in the invitation to realignment, as exemplified in Jonah's Nineveh, where repentance averted doom. Temporal dynamics within the framework portrayed divine consciousness as perceiving time holistically, enabling precise disclosures to linear beings. Isaiah's throne room vision provided such access, imparting knowledge impossible naturally, like Hebrew terms for future technologies, flying objects, melting fire, that anticipate aerial warfare. This selectivity revealing enough for verification, but not totality guards against presumption, logically fostering faith over certainty, as in Hebrews 11, to one's substance of things hoped for. Morally, it affirms human accountability. Foreknown events do not excuse choices. They heighten responsibility, with eternal consequences woven into the fabric. Per Galatians 6:2-7, reaping what we sow, spiritually. Prophecies unveil hidden dimensions. Physical upheavals symptomize spiritual battles, with divine intervention responding to collective and individual conditions. Isaiah describes angelic encounters and direct divine dialogues, chapter 6:8, as literal, providing supernatural intel, philosophically challenging materialistic reductions of consciousness to brain chemistry, suggesting a multidimensional self, as in 1 Thessalonians 5:23's spirit, soul, body. Verification built in specifics, testable by fulfillment. Timelines. Moral consistency with God's character distinguishes authentic prophecy. Meeting Deuteronomy 18-22's litmus. Materialistic resistance stems from this framework's threat. Admitting transtemporal revelation acknowledges authority beyond empiricism, dismantling naturalistic paradigms, as Enlightenment thinkers like Hume dismissed miracles on probabilistic grounds. Yet, Isaiah's evidence demands reconsideration. Acceleration of fulfillment post-1948, Israel triggering sequences suggests approaching climax, validating unfulfilled warnings with historical precision. Paradoxes abound. Efforts to prevent fulfillment often enable it, like Herod's massacre fulfilling flight to Egypt, Matthew 2, demonstrating divine ingenuity, incorporating rebellion, per Genesis 52:20. Hope balances terror. Catastrophe precedes renewal, establishing justice, chapter 11-4, eliminating pain, chapter 25-8. A philosophical theodicy where evil's permission serves greater good, in Kiam. This framework unveils a purposeful cosmos, urging spiritual vigilance. If these revelations inspire, like and subscribe to Jesus Speaks for biblical wisdom. Next, evidence integration, where strands unite in overwhelming affirmation. Imagine the vast expanse of human inquiry converging like rivers into a mighty ocean, where linguistic nuances, archaeological artifacts, historical chronicles, cultural transformations, and statistical certainties all merge to form an irrefutable testament to divine revelation, a symphony of evidence that elevates Isaiah's prophecies from intriguing anomaly to undeniable supernatural truth. This integration of multidisciplinary proofs not only validates the book's authenticity, but also unveils a coherent worldview where history, morality, and destiny intertwine under eternal authority, challenging us to confront the implications for our materialistic age. As we embark on this section with composed deliberation, let us proceed as stewards of wisdom, akin to the psalmist in Psalm 111, who praises God's works, studied by all who delight in them, allowing the synthesis to reveal itself layer by layer, culminating in a profound Kiyam on the unassailable nature of prophetic certainty. The comprehensive integration of evidence commences with the linguistic foundation, where Isaiah's Hebrew mastery encompassing over 2,000 unique words and terminology, anticipating future technologies like aerial destruction and melting fire, exceeds 8th century BC norms, suggesting authorship beyond human limits. This complexity, when cross-referenced with archaeological validations, such as the Dead Sea Scrolls unified manuscript from 125 BC, eliminates post-fulfillment fabrication theories. The scrolls, preserving the text identically to modern versions, affirm that messianic details in chapter 53 predated Christ, logically intertwining language with physical proof to demonstrate preternatural insight. Philosophically, this fusion echoes the Aristotelian pursuit of first principles, where form and matter unite. But biblically, it reflects 2 Timothy 3:16's assertion of Scripture as God-breathed, useful for teaching and correction. Archaeological layers further solidify the case. The Cyrus cylinder's exact match to chapters 44-45's decree, Babylonian chronicles confirming chapter 13's fall without siege, and Assyrian inscriptions aligning with chapter 37's failed Jerusalem assault create a timeline of precision spanning empires. These artifacts, discovered independently across centuries, form an unbreakable chain, statistically rendering natural coincidence negligible. Probabilities for such alignments approach zero. As Kenneth Kitchens analyzes, quantify, when integrated with historical documentation from Josephus's account of Cyrus's prophetic encounter to Tacitus's siege details mirroring chapter 29, the evidence transcends isolated facts, revealing a consistent pattern of fulfillment that defies cultural bias. As diverse sources, Hebrew, Persian, Greek, Roman, corroborate the same truths. Philosophically, this cross-verification aligns with Popper's falsifiability, where prophecies withstand rigorous testing, unlike unfalsifiable myths, echoing Deuteronomy 18:22's prophetic standard. Cultural impacts add a dynamic dimension. Isaiah's words influencing Cyrus's policy, the Septuagint's role in Hellenistic monotheism, Roman persecutions targeting prophetic claims, Islamic theological tensions, and modern Zionism's reliance on restoration visions, chapter 66, demonstrate sustained authority across 27 centuries. This influence shaping reformations, explorations like Columbus's 66-19, and American exceptionalism, City on a Hill, from chapter 2, integrates with contemporary fulfillments, such as Israel's 1948 rebirth and Hebrew revival, accelerating since then. The pattern, skepticism, yields to integration, with aligned societies prospering and opposers facing judgments, philosophically suggesting spiritual causation. As Ephesians 6:12's unseen battles manifest in visible history, statistical integration amplifies the overwhelming nature. Peter Stoner's 1 in YOY odds for 8 messianic prophecies, extended to Isaiah's full scope including Cyrus, Babylon's desolation, and end times alignment succeed scientific impossibility thresholds. This mathematical rigor, when woven with geological accuracies, Red Sea drying per tectonic shifts, astronomical insights, stellar collapse in 34:4 matching expanding universes, and medical precisions, crucifixion pathology in 53 creates convergent validity across disciplines. No naturalistic theory matches this explanatory scope, encompassing archaeology's timelines, history's records, culture's transformations, and modernity's manifestations, with such coherence logically pointing to transcendent knowledge, as Colossians 1:17 declares all things held together in Christ. Theological and moral threads interlace seamlessly. Isaiah's unity, consistent vocabulary, style, themes, refutes multiple author theories, with Qumran Pesharim treating it as one prophetic voice. This integrity validates spiritual revelations, angelic encounters, chapter 6. Moral warnings, 520's inversion, extending accuracy from political to personal realms, where human nature's profiles, pride, corruption, mirror society, as Psalm 51's introspective plea for cleansing. Philosophically, it critiques relativism, affirming absolute divine standards, akin to C.S. Lewis's moral law argument, but rooted in prophetic fulfillment. Predictive power strengthens over time. Unlike revisable scientific theories, Isaiah's framework anticipates events with undiminished precision. From Assyria's fall to Israel's blooming deserts, validating unfulfilled warnings about global catastrophes. This ongoing vindication, accelerating post-1948, suggests approaching climax, logically demanding worldview shift toward divine purpose. As Revelation 21's new creation fulfills Isaiah's visions, explanatory breadths, spans, scales, archaeological digs by secular teams confirm religious preserved prophecies. Opposing cultures, records validate sequences. Global audiences witness modern alignments like knowledge explosions 28:9-10 and technological matches 66:15's fire chariots. Temporal scope from contemporary fulfillments to 27th century continuity eliminates luck with technological prescience, aerial warfare terms, transcending ancient knowledge, moral spiritual integration, reveals cosmic principles governing reality. Judgments on Rebellion chapter 13 align with fulfillments, validating divine justice, as Amos 5:24 urges righteousness. Patterns form comprehensive divine plan, individual prophecies as components toward redemption. Interpretive for current events per Ecclesiastes 3's seasons. Authentication accelerates confidence. Each fulfillment, Cyrus, crucifixion, confirms. Source, building toward unfulfilled vindication. Resistance, prevention attempts failing. Becoming mechanisms, Herod's massacre, fulfilling flight, validates authority. Fulfilling opposition warnings. Acceleration post-Israel. Migrations increases frequency, aligning with end times predictions. Integration yields coherent worldview, meaning, hope, amid chaos, superior to materialism. As Psalm 119 to 105's word lights the path, objectively integrated. Isaiah's accuracy approaches mathematical certainty, convergence exceeding reasonable doubt, only rejectable by inconsistent standards. Philosophically, challenges epistemology, supernatural claims meet higher rigor than other fields. Bias evident in suppression by institutions fearing authority loss. In Kiam Giam, integration affirms prophetic lens for existence participants. In cosmic renewal, if this synthesis enlightens, like and subscribe to Jesus Speaks for eternal insights. Next, institutional implications, where accuracy confronts power structures. Imagine a world where the unyielding precision of ancient prophecies pierces the veneer of modern authority, exposing the fragility of institutions built on the sands of humanistic autonomous structures that claim ultimate sovereignty over knowledge, governance, and destiny, only to tremble before evidence of a higher power that orchestrates history with infallible intent. This is the profound crisis precipitated by Isaiah's validated accuracy, where supernatural revelation demands reckoning across every sphere of societal power, from academia's halls to the corridors of government, compelling a philosophical reevaluation of legitimacy, morality, and ultimate truth. As we enter this section with measured introspection, let us proceed as discerning observers, akin to the wisdom-seeking stance in Proverbs 2, where searching for understanding yields treasures from the Lord, allowing the implications to unfold with clarity and depth, leading to a contemplate on the necessity of humility before divine authority. The institutional implications of Isaiah's prophetic reliability commence with the educational establishment, which faces an existential challenge to its core methodologies. Modern universities and secular curricula are predicated on materialistic assumptions, systematically excluding supernatural explanations from disciplines like history, archaeology, and religious studies. Acknowledging Isaiah's accuracies, such as the pre-Christ manuscripts confirming messianic details, or Cyrus's named rollwood, necessitate fundamental revisions. Biblical criticism courses would be revealed as ideologically biased. Ancient Near Eastern studies compelled to integrate prophetic fulfillment as historical fact, and comparative religion frameworks adjusted to validate divine intervention. Philosophically, this disrupts the positivist paradigm of Auguste Comte, where knowledge evolves from theological to scientific stages, instead affirming a biblical epistemology where fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Proverbs 9:10. The terror for educators lies in the exposure. If Isaiah demonstrates transtemporal knowledge, then curricula, ignoring spiritual dimensions, systematically mislead, echoing to Timothy 3:7's, ever learning yet never acknowledging truth. Scientific institutions encounter equally seismic shifts. Methodological naturalism, the cornerstone of modern research, assumes natural causes suffice for all phenomena. Yet, Isaiah's foresight's geological predictions of rivers drying, chapter 11, aligning with tectonic science, astronomical descriptions of dissolving heavens 34:4, matching cosmic expansion evidences, information transcending physical limits. Physics must confront temporal models, allowing prophetic access, perhaps harmonizing with quantum non-locality, while biology and neuroscience grapple with consciousness receiving supernatural input. beyond neural processes. Medical fields face reevaluation of healing. Isaiah 35 to 5:6's blind seeing and lame leaping suggest interventions exceeding physical modalities, logically extending to Psalm 103:2-3's God who heals all diseases. Philosophically, this challenges reductionism, as in Dawkins's gen-centric view, toward a holistic paradigm where spirit influences matter. Per 1 Corinthians 2:14's natural man not discerning spiritual things. Political institutions confront a crisis of sovereignty. Democratic theory posits human rationality suffices for self-governance. Yet Isaiah's warnings of failing human systems, chapter 24's chaos and replacement by divine Rule 9267's endless government undermine claims of ultimate authority. National policies rejecting moral law invite judgment, as historical fulfillments like Babylon's fall illustrate, demanding alignment with divine justice over majority consensus. Legally, jurisprudence grounded in human reason or tradition must yield to absolute standards, as Isaiah 59:14's justice turned backward critiques relativistic ethics. International bodies like the UN, claiming authority sans divine sanction, face illegitimacy if prophecy validates transcendent governance, philosophically echoing Locke's social contract, but subordinated to God's covenant, as in Deuteronomy 17:18-20's king bound by law. Economic systems are similarly appended. Capitalism and socialism assume human mechanisms can equitably distribute resources. Yet Isaiah 55:1-2 critiques wealth pursuits leaving souls empty, predicting collapse and divine provision 25:6-8's abundance. Financial strategies, ignoring spiritual dimensions, prove illusory. Logically, per Ecclesiastes 5:10's money never satisfying, urging stewardship toward kingdom purposes. Media and cultural institutions grapple with interpretive authority. If Isaiah's framework deciphers events' spiritual significance, news outlets excluding prophetic context mislead, as chapter 5:20's deception warnings manifest in biased narratives. Journalism's gatekeeping role crumbles if supernatural lenses reveal truth, philosophically challenging Habermas's public sphere toward biblical discernment, as in John 8:32's truth setting free. Museums and arts organizations, humanistic in mission, must acknowledge transcendent meaning, while entertainment promoting secularism miseducates if divine purpose governs history. Religious institutions, though aligned in theory, face internal reckonings. Liberal denominations, dismissing supernatural elements, find foundations eroded by evidence validating them, while conservatives, neglecting prophetic warnings, confront complacency. Denominational divisions yield to unified submission to scriptural authority, as Isaiah's unity mirrors Ephesians 4-5's one faith. This authority crisis stems from institutions' rejection of supernatural governance, resistance, fulfilling end times opposition, chapter 29's blindness. Yet personal implications extend deeper. Isaiah's accuracy demands individual response, affirming biblical moral teachings as divine mandates. Ethics become obedience to revealed will, spiritual development prioritizing relationship with God. As chapter 6's holiness vision calls to purity, judgment warnings create urgency. Living precede catastrophes. Chapter 24. Preparation essential, per Matthew 25's wise virgins. Discernment combats deception. 5:20. Financial planning shifts to eternal investments. Matthew 6:19-21. Career choices, kingdom-focused. Family and relationships prioritize spiritual heritage. Health balances, physical and divine healing. James 5:15. Emotional resilience draws from hope. Chapter 42:31's Eagle Wings. Evangelism shares truth. 66-19. Community builds support. Hebrews 10:25. Worship transcends institutions. Time management, eternal priorities. Ephesians 5:16. The choice, align with divine or oppose. Eternal consequences, per Revelation 20:12. In contemplate. Implications urge re-evaluation lives under divine gaze. If stirred, subscribe to Jesus Speaks for guidance. Forward to future trajectory, where prophecies unveil destiny. Envision a horizon where the threads of prophecy converge into a climactic revelation, transforming the terror of impending judgment into the dawn of eternal restoration. A future where cosmic disturbances give way to renewed heavens and earth, and humanity's destiny unfolds under the unerring guidance of divine authority. This is the ultimate trajectory illuminated by Isaiah's unassailable accuracy, a prophetic blueprint that not only forewarns of catastrophe, but promises a redemptive consummation beyond our loftiest imaginings. Compelling philosophical reflection on the purpose of suffering and the triumph of grace. As we conclude this immersive journey with contemplative resolve, let us traverse the final vistas deliberately, akin to the psalmist's ascent in Psalm 121. Lifting eyes to the hills whence comes our help, permitting the visions to resonate with profound depth, culminating in a Kiam Giam that beckons personal alignment with eternal truths. Isaiah's unfulfilled prophecies delineate a sequence of global upheavals that will dismantle human civilization as presently constituted, commencing with environmental and cosmic perturbations of unprecedented scale. Chapter 24, 18-20, depicts the earth reeling like a drunkard, foundations shaken by seismic forces, while 34-4 foretells the heavens rolling up as a scroll, with stellar hosts dissolving imagery, aligning with modern astrophysical models of cosmic instability, yet infused with divine intentionality. These are not arbitrary disasters, but judgments purifying a defiled creation, logically extending from moral corruption to physical consequences, as articulated in Romans 8:22, where creation groans in travail. Geologically, predictions of the Red Sea and Euphrates drying, chapter 11:15, suggest tectonic realignments, reshaping landscapes, rendering current borders obsolete, and facilitating massive migrations, a philosophical testament to the transience of human constructs, echoing Ecclesiastes 1-4's generations passing, while earth abides, yet under divine renewal. Politically, the trajectory heralds the collapse of earthly governance and its supersession by divine rule. Isaiah 9-6-7 envisions a government upon the shoulders of the Prince of Peace, with justice and righteousness enduring forever, no end to its increase, supplanting flawed human systems that perpetuate inequality and conflict. International alliances. will fracture amid chaos. Chapter 17's Damascus ruin, 19's Egyptian strife, culminating in a unified divine administration centered in Jerusalem. 2:22-24, where nations learn war no more, swords beaten into plowshares. This shift challenges Machiavellian realpolitik, philosophically affirming Plato's ideal republic, but realized through messianic kingship. As Zechariah 14:9 declares the Lord King over all earth, economically, current financial paradigms built on scarcity and exploitation will yield to abundance without monetary strife. Isaiah 55:1-2 critiques labor for unsatisfying ends, promising provisions where hunger and thirst are quenched freely. 25-6's feast for all peoples, a sustainable economy rooted in divine equity. Logically, per Hosea 2:21-22's, earth responding to heaven's call. Wealth hoarding becomes irrelevant as judgment renders riches worthless. Chapter 2:20, urging reevaluation of materialism per Matthew 6:33's, seeking first the kingdom. The transition's terror manifests in catastrophic judgments, discriminating between alignment and rebellion, destruction befalling opposers while protecting the faithful. As chapter 26-2021's hiding from indignation. Population decimation 24-6's, few left through warfare, disasters, and plagues will reduce humanity to a remnant, necessitating reconstruction, philosophically akin to Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, but redeemed through biblical hope, where suffering forges purity, as in 1 Peter 1:27's trials, refining faith. Human innovations prove futile against divine intervention. 31-3's, horses as flesh, not spirit, reliance on machinery, exposed as vain when supernatural forces prevail. Logically, per Psalm 22:7's, trust not in chariots, but the Lord's name. Spiritual warfare escalates visibly. 14:12-15's Lucifer fall, cosmic conflict resolving in divine victory. As Revelation 20's binding of Satan fulfills Isaiah's motifs, socially, hierarchies dissolve, replaced by structures prioritizing spiritual growth. Families, education, religions reoriented toward divine knowledge. 11-9's, earth full of Lord's glory. Timeline acceleration events, unfolding suddenly. 29-5's, instant visitation precludes gradual adaptation, emphasizing readiness. Per Amos 4:12's, prepare to meet God, yet restoration follows judgment, its purpose redemptive, new heavens and earth. 65-17-25, eliminating death, sorrow, predation. Lions eating straw, deserts blooming eternally. Governmental perfection resolves disputes through wisdom. 2-4, economic abundance sustains without exploitation. 25-6, spiritual communion becomes normative, direct access to God supplanting intermediaries. Technological restoration grants supernatural capabilities. 42-31's, mounting on eagle wings, free of destructive effects. Medical wholeness heals all ailments. 35-5-6, astronomical renewal stabilizes cosmos. Educational transformation imparts divine truth. 54-13's, children taught by Lord's artistic expressions reflect uncorrupted beauty. 61-3's, ashes to beauty. Relational harmony erases conflicts through love. 11:06-9's, wolf with lamb, cosmic scope extends universe-wide, eradicating rebellion. vindicating divine authority, undeniably philosophical systems, denying God exposed, as Romans 1:20's, inexcusable ignorance. The trajectories terror and hope intertwine. Destruction purges evil for glory, exceeding Eden, philosophically resolving theodicy, as Job 42:5's, seeing God after trial. Contemporary applications demand reevaluation, interpret news prophetically. 24's signs in headlines, discerning fulfillment from fluctuation. Financial strategies prioritize spiritual investments, Matthew 6:19. Education emphasizes character and skills for kingdom, Proverbs 22:6. Careers serve needs, advancing divine purposes. Geography considers prophetic safety, chapter 4's, refuge. Places, relationships foster, with like-minded, Psalm 133's, unity. Parenting instills resilience, Deuteronomy 6:7. Health balances physical prudence with faith, 3 John 1:2. Ministry shares urgency, 66-19. Worship authentic, John 4:24. Community builds support, Acts 2:42. Politics advances kingdom over partisanship, Matthew 6:33. Culture engages selectively, time manages eternally, Ephesians 5:16. Resources allocate for impact. Technology dependence tempers with independence. Medical integrates spiritual healing. Legal relies on divine protection. Business aligns biblically. Travel, preparedness, communication, entertainment. Legacy all viewed through prophetic lens. Prudent without fear. Philippians 4:6. The evidence overwhelms, academic, historical, cultural, modern converge, validating supernatural source, suppression, fulfills deception, yet truth endures. Response determines participation, embrace, or reject. Urgency, from timeline 1948, trigger accelerating, awaken to cosmic conflict, share truth, prepare spiritually, connect communities. Isaiah's accuracy changes everything. Purposeful existence in divine narrative. If opened eyes, comment, awakened, subscribe to Jesus Speaks for suppressed truths. Isaiah's words fulfilled flawlessly, credit unfulfilled equally. Your choice. Shapes place in reshaping events, line with divine purposes, transcending understanding, demanding response.